All right, what's going on, everyone? Jared Couture here with the incredible Kung Fu music master, Mr. Daniel Gilbert. Hello, Dan.
Jared, good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor for me to have you here. I've been doing a special series with people who I consider Kung Fu music masters, asking them questions about mastery and all this. And you're definitely, what I consider a true musical master. So hope you
Oh,
feel
thank you so
comfortable with
much.
it.
I mean, I really appreciate you put me in such good company with the other people that you have interviewed.
Well, man, you've probably taught a lot of them. But yeah, thank you so much. So anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. And first question, first thing I just want to get people acquainted with is a little bit of your history. So would you mind sharing a bit of your musical background? Like when did you start? And
Sure, I started
yeah.
playing when I was 13 years old, and I went down to the music store and bought a guitar, and they immediately signed me up for lessons. And at that time, everybody, I just did whatever my teacher told me to do. And so, and there was that thing. And then there was like, hey, my buddy is showing me how to play, Sunshine of Your Love on one string. So I'm going to do that. Like, hey, I just learned, this bar chord in the lesson, but I'm going to write little 12-bar blues with my brother who plays bass, and we would just make up songs. And we would always jam. I had another buddy who was a guitar player named Eric Parker, who was a really great guitar player, and he went on to be a psychologist, but that's another story. And so we always had a band. We were always playing together. Two guitars, bass. I had a very influential. First of all, I always hung on every word that my teacher said because I didn't know how to play guitar, so I thought, I just listen to do whatever the guy tells me to do.
Good approach.
And it's really funny. Every once in a while, I clean up my music room and I go back and I still have my very first guitar lessons, and they are really, really good guitar lessons. It kind of freaked me out. A couple of weeks ago, I dug it out, and I noticed the date was 1971, which was, I guess I was like 15 going on 16. And I could see that the lessons were like reading, scales, arpeggios, you know, uh, position reading. And I was like, holy shit, I forgot that I was kind of that trained, and I was kind of like, whoa. It just made me think about, holy shit, these teachers were really good. Now, some of my teachers were a guy named Danny Infantino, who went on to be a classical guitar, I think, professor at some North Carolina university, and Howard Morgan, who was a fingerstyle jazz player, seven string and six string, who was an amazing. He's got many, many books out. He's an incredible player. I think he passed away. His arrangements were just really, really cool. If you ever get a chance to look at some of his arrangements for fingerstyle jazz guitar, they're really great. His lessons were great also. I also had Ronnie Lee, who was like kind of a jazz guy who I took lessons from in Midtown Manhattan. I went to his apartment, and he was this kind of really old school guy, but I really learned a lot from him. I still have his lessons, and they're really good. It's like a lot of songs, a lot of stuff, and that was amazing. And then when I went to MI, my three main teachers were Don Mock, Ron Eshte, and Joe Diorio, and we had an amazing visiting staff. And so I just hung on every word
Hmm.
those guys said. Now, just as a really short thing, my training was so good. Now, back in New York, I had always been in bands at night and would play rock, what we called like top 40 FM rock at that time. Led Zeppelin. Uh, we had girl singers also, so we would actually swing over and do a lot of kind of like soul music and stuff, Aretha Franklin, but we'd also rock out with David Bowie and Aerosmith and that kind of stuff. But then always my lessons were very technical oriented. And so when I came out to MI and I sat down with Joe Diorio to take a placement exam, he would ask me, "Can you play this scale?" And I would play it. "Can you play a Dorian scale?" I'd play it. "Can you play a melodic minor?" I could play it. "Can you play a harmonic minor?" I could play it. "Can you play this arpeggio?" I could play it. "Can you play this chord?" I could play it. And then he stopped me and he said, "What the fuck you doing here?" And I said, I know all this stuff. I don't know how to use it." And he goes, "Okay, perfect." So we would go to a class and he would say, "Hey, everybody, you can go up a fifth and play the melodic minor or whatever." And I go, "Oh, that sounds cool." And everybody else is like, "Wait, fuck, how do you play that scale again?" even though we were still studying scales at the same time. So it was sort of at a perfect time for me. I was able to apply everything that they were talking about immediately because physically I had sort of worked a lot on a lot of things. I mean, there's always something to do physically on the guitar, but I had a lot of stuff down already, so I could like use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so rock and roll at night, cover bands at night, jazz guitar lessons during the week, working in a shipping factory in Manhattan, and until I finally stopped that and got in a band that was touring around the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and I did that until I came out to MI.
Wow. I also read that you did go to two colleges before MI as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I started Brooklyn College for a music major program, and that was too far to go on the subway, and I kind of dropped out, sadly enough. But then also before that, I went in Flushing, Queens, where I grew up. There was a conservatory of music that I went to
Mm.
for about 6 or 8 months, and got into sort of 4-part writing when I was really young. So I understood. I mean, I had kind of started Counterpoint in Brooklyn, but I didn't really go that far with it. And
Wow.
yeah, but I always had a guitar teacher. That was one thing. Always had a guitar teacher, and I
That's
always
amazing.
like I had Danny Infantino, and everybody said, "Oh, well, now you have to go to Danny Infantino's teacher, which was Howard Morgan." And then after Howard Morgan, and he was like, "Well, then you should go to this guy. If you're in Manhattan a lot, you should go to this guy." And so I went to that guy. And I took some other side lessons from a couple of people here and there, and I did take a couple of lessons from Pat Martino before
Mm.
I came out to New York, and that was an amazing experience, also.
Wow. Yeah, so you've been really in it the entire time since you began, right? Basically, immediately you were really
Yeah,
studying.
as far as learning the guitar, absolutely, and sort of playing at night, yeah.
That's so cool. One of the things that I say in the Kung Fu program, I try to set everyone up as a student and then teach them to teach. And then that's a requirement for them to teach because I feel
Mm.
like the fastest way to learn is to be the student and the teacher at the same time.
That
You
is
know,
so true.
and that's the cycle because it's like you want to always feel like a student no matter what and be studying, but then also be teaching to also make sure you know what you're talking about. I feel like that's the way. Sounds like you've been doing that pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun. Of course, you have the Kung Fu mastery, I'm just going to say I dabbled in a bunch of styles for martial arts styles for a very long time. I'm not training with anybody now, but I play at home.
Well,
And
yeah.
and one thing in Taekwondo, when we got to a certain level, the instructor said, and this is Master Ken Nagayama. I have to mention that he would say, "Okay, now you have to start teaching in order to get better." Just like you just said, you have to start teaching. And I remember there was this one red belt guy, which is right below black belt in that system, and he didn't want to do it. He just didn't want to
Really?
teach, and so he just stayed at that level.
Wow.
I thought, wow, this guy he's amazing. He kicked everybody's ass. Uh, but he just didn't want to. I don't know. He was just uncomfortable talking. He couldn't communicate what it was that he knew or what he was supposed to know. And I always thought that was a really telling situations because in all the other schools I went to, once you got to a certain level, you had to start assisting the instructor and start teaching some classes on your own. And
Mm-hmm.
that was always true. But I always remember that one guy, and I thought, yeah, that's not cool.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's whatever. I've noticed in my program, some people just want to get to a certain level, and that's like good enough. Like, I got this belt, this strap, and I'm good. But I don't know this situation. But this segues me right into your question. It's perfect. And I want to say that, of course, to the listeners. So I went to Musicians Institute, I guess, and I graduated in 2012. I'm rocking the MI shirt today for this. Um, but I mean, you were, as I remember as a teacher, always talking about kung fu and really cool and hilarious with so much martial arts stuff all the time. I remember the students would call you like sensei and all kinds of things. It's very
Yeah,
fun. But
yeah. I made people, as a joke, made either
oh
call me
yeah,
Mr. Miyagi or Shifu or Sensei. Yeah.
oh yeah, I remember. It was very very cool. And I'm probably you're probably partially responsible for this program. I'm just saying for me because in my subconscious it must live somewhere in there because I love that you did that because I loved kung fu so much too and I was like oh that's so cool and this guy was doing it But this what makes me want to ask you now. So, what's like? Explain more about your relationship to kung fu in general, and your love of martial arts and/or specifically kung fu, and then how you relate that to music and your life in some way.
When I sit down and think about it, I realize how hugely the arts have influenced me. And by the way, that's fun that you use it. I never use the term kung fu. I always use the term in China, internal health arts, because my first of all, my studies in the martial arts started with Taekwondo,
Mm.
and I did that for a good 4 or 5 years. And then it was weird. Somehow something would always happen when I get to a really senior level. I would get sick, or something would happen with bands, and I'd be really busy, and I wasn't able to continue. And so then I found another instructor who was Kenpo instructor, Phil Wimberly, and I was there like 4 or 5 years. Uh, but in between those was my really main huge influence was Shifu John Fei, and he was the one who started me calling it the Chinese internal health arts, because he didn't believe that it was combat. For him, it was more about developing the chi and circulating chi in your body to be healthy, and that the ways that you moved your body. He always said if he was ever had to be in a bar fight, and I pity anybody on the other side of this guy in a bar fight. Of course, he would never get in a bar fight, but that's
Right.
another conversation. He would always say, I'd rather like I had a dancer with me. And we'll go, really? Why? And he would say, because the dancer knows how to really use their body and move their body. I thought, oh wow, that's really interesting. You'd be more interested in somebody who could really maneuver their body in a whole bunch of different ways than somebody who can like pound somebody. So I thought that was always interesting. So anyway, with him, I studied Bagua and a little bit of Xinyi and Tai Chi. And he is, and still is, an amazing guy. He took one of the instructors from MI named Charlie Fechter, and Charlie Fechter got so into his internal arts that he left L.A. Shifu John Fei, moved back to Alabama, Homewood, Alabama, and Charlie Fechter went with him, and they started their own system called New Forest Way. So Shifu John Fei was the one. The first two arts, the other two arts that I studied were very, martial oriented. Sure there was stretching and fighting and all that. And there's a lot of lessons from that. After a while I realized, hey, I can't really like stand there and hit a bag. It's not really going to be great for my hands so much to hit a bag for like 3 hours, because I don't want to fuck up my hands for guitar.
Right.
So I never really got into like, pushing my hand into hot stones or anything like that. uh, but Shifu John Fei is the one that really started getting into the chi and developing the health arts and breathing through your heels in a way of drawing chi up from the earth. And he was really ingenious in a lot of ways. He was really, really taught by one of the last remaining five masters. The way I understand it, there were five dragons in China after the Cultural Revolution. And Shifu Dan Fei was a very in ill health when he was very young, and his father found this guy, and he agreed to accept him, and he healed him and taught him like all, really from the source martial arts. Not martial arts, internal Chinese health arts, Bagua, Xinyi, Tai Chi. And he really knew, like, when you saw his body move, it was just, it never moved like somebody else I had ever seen before. And a lot of us students, and what was weird was John Fay was a student at MI. He decided to take some time off from the arts and come study guitar. And a lot of us felt, wow, a bunch of us started training with him. And I went with him for about 2 or 3 years. And he was really traditional in the sense that we would meet in a park, which is the way that they do it in China. It's Saturday, Sunday morning. Everybody is out in the park. It's like filled with everybody practicing and playing. And that's where we'd meet. And so many amazing things. My thing, see it, feel it, touch it, taste it, hear it. That's sort of an outgrowth of him. Before every class, we would do a really short thing of, I'm paraphrasing here, but we would say, yeah, I'm a teacher, but I'm just here to show you where the door is, hand you a few keys. You have to walk through the door. And I'll always remember that. This idea of visualizing something first before you do it is critical to guitar workout, and something that Howard Roberts did when he started the school as well. And so, we sometimes he would force us, we would all freak out, but he would force us to sit there and do a form in our head without doing it physically, and then do it physically. And he also stressed doing things really super, super slowly. Or he would separate shit out and freak everybody out. We would learn a form, and then he would say, okay, everybody, like just the feet. And we go, what? Yeah, just the feet part of it. And everybody would freak out like, oh shit, oh wow, I never really thought that closely about the feet. So, and then we go, okay, everybody, let's do the form, hands only, same deal. We're all like, oh shit, I never. And then we would sort of put it together.
Wow.
And he's an amazing, amazing guy. As a matter of fact, hold on one second.
Okay.
Where is it? See, it's never too far away. This is one of his very, very earliest books. I don't know if you can see the title.
It's the Secrets of Chinese Internal Boxing. Nice.
Very small. I will not review. I'm not really supposed to reveal any of that, but it's really, 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 really interesting. And so one of the original Five Dragons was his teacher and gave him all these amazing concepts that were deep ways that you need to practice and play the arts. And what Sifu John Fei's, he boiled it down to the numbers 1 through 10. And each one of these is like a Chinese concept. But number 1 was fun, which meant relax. Number 2 was shu, which meant think about your feet. Number 3 is tree, which means grow roots out of your feet that are twice as deep as how tall you are. Number 4 is core, dan tian, 3 inches below your navel, halfway in. 5 is a lot. Wait, I jumped ahead. 4 is core. 5 is alive. The chi is flowing. 6 is thick. The air, and he's from the South, so he would always talk about the air is like blackstrap molasses. The air that you're moving through is heavy. And when he would do it, it's so weird. Like you could see that the air was heavy the way that he did it. And it's amazing because even that slight visualization of the air being heavy, I can feel it. Mm-hmm. And that motion looks different than if I'm just doing that. I can feel the heaviness of the air and I'm pushing against it. Sorry, 6. 7, heaven. A string is at the top of your skull, straightening up your your spine. 8 is gate. You're breathing out in and out through your back. And there's like a filter there. All the bad shit's going out. 9 is shine. Your whole body is glowing with the chi. 10 is spin. Spin means you're doing all of those at the same time as you're doing your form. 1 fun, 2 shu, 3 tree, 4 core, 5 alive, 6 sick, 7 heaven, 8 gate, 9 shine, 10 spin. Was I ever able to do all that together? No. Because as soon as you're thinking about one, then all the other ones kind of go away. But you kind of understand. For an instant, you might feel that you're moving everything in that way. So I had a lot of amazing, amazing experiences under his training, and I would sometimes ask him, about. I would ask him, how can I? How can I move the chi while I'm playing? While I'm playing guitar. Never really had an immediate answer for me, or something I kind of played around with on my own. If I'm able to spin all those while playing, sometimes I think about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was
sorry. I went off there.
No, that was my next question, actually. Yeah. And I asked Tobias Hurwitz. I don't know if you know him. He went to MI as well.
I know the name.
And we did. He loves kung fu. He's super cool. We did an interview, and I asked him the same thing. It's like we're talking about chi, and I'm like, hey, well, do you ever try to purposefully put that in your music? And I definitely do. And you're saying that you've definitely played with it, and I think it's interesting. I totally know what you're saying about moving the air in that way. because with my shifu, like seeing this, how to use the chi and every movement, that's like that's how it is. You know, they're really digging in and creating that friction. You know.
I really want to make a pilgrimage to Alabama and just kind of show it. They do have a place. It's called New Forest Way. He started his new school, Blue Dragon Kung Fu Academy, I think he calls it, and I still remember this. I really need to make a pilgrimage there at some point, and just see if I could say hello. Just two brief things, then I'll stop about that, and we can get back to guitar.
Yeah, that's
There are
nice.
people that would hire him to go. This is John Fay. I'm talking about Shifu John Fay. They would hire him to go help people who were brain damaged and had trouble communicating because he could move them, he could reach them. Very early on in my experience with him, we were having class, and after the class, one of the girls pulled out like a little pouch of crystals and took out a crystal, and being a jerk from New York, I started kind of making, oh yeah, you got your crystals out, huh? And John Fasek said, Shifu, John Fasek, come here. And I went over and he took one of the crystals. He said, hold out your arm. So I held out my arm like this. And he takes the crystal and he runs it down my arm. And I feel this like, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And then he gives the crystal back to the girl. And I was like, okay, that's the last time I'm ever going to say anything. Like I really was like kind of bug-eyed after that.
Yeah, absolutely. People use crystals a lot. I have a friend who he claims he moves the wind with them, and he's shown me. The funny thing is, like the wind moves when he does it, and it's like, is the wind just windy right now, or is it happen to be happening from him? But
And
that's
yeah,
amazing.
this is all sort of amplified by the person that is manipulating it. I truly feel, So
Yeah,
I don't know if he's still playing guitar or not. I'm not sure, but obviously, I still play guitar and train. I don't train every day, but I'm not a gym guy. But I stand in my living room and punch air and kick air, and I still like to keep the martial aspect of it alive. To be honest, a little bit.
yeah, me too. I think it's important. But yeah, so in continuation with all this that you just said so much awesome stuff. You know, there's so many places we could go into there, but still
Yeah,
with
sorry. That just when I start talking about him, I just
yeah,
really.
do it. It's amazing, and to hear this inspiration that you have, and again, though, too, uh, how more specifically do you apply these ideas from kung fu or the internal arts, as you called it, to your playing and like into musical ideas and things like that?
Well, I mean, I think you could probably see over my shoulder here. I have the Yin Yang symbol, the Great Tai Chi. As far as training, I always take that into account. It's amazing how many times I'll give a student an assignment, and they'll, whatever, play a scale, and they'll play it up and stop. And then I'll go, well, what about down? And then they play it down, but fuck it up. And I say, yeah, you see, it kind of looks different going down, doesn't it? And they're like, oh shit, I didn't think about that. And everything they do is just going up, and then they would stop. They figure they got it. So I'd have to tell everybody constantly through the lesson, what about descending? And they go, crash. Like, okay, now I remember. So the yin yang always keeps me thinking about, okay, well, what's the opposite of what I just did? If I just alternate picked everything, I should try other ways, hose and pose, hammer on pull-offs, or hybrid, or sliding, right? If I just played in the box a lot, now I need to play this way, to go up and I'm doing much more of this now, seeing the neck this way as well as this way. Um, so yin yang constantly informs me about how I can practice. Oh, I've been like playing notes all day. Come on, idiot, get some chords going. Okay, inversions, substitutions, different chord exercises. Everybody knows a million single note exercises, but they know very few. Like they can't think of chord exercises to do. I know, that's really we are unfortunately we are a chordal and a melodic instrument, and if you really want to get a handle on that's a lot of work.
Yeah, Absolutely. And
Not that I'm there. I'm still, harmonically. My friend Jamie Finley. Who Jamie is, an amazing fingerstyle jazz player. Always comes up with chords, and I'm like, God damn it! I didn't think of that. So it is. Chords are just a huge thing. I wish people did more. And the other saying above my head there, if everybody was laughing at, if you know where it is, then you know where it isn't. Which means if you know a basic element really well, it should be easy to change it or add on to it. But you have to know it really well. If you know it, of course, I'm going to do triads because I'm a nut about triads. Of course, triads represent the yin yang symbol to me because the power of three. Well, you're going to say why three? Because you got yin yang. That's two, isn't it? Yes, but there's yin and yang, and then the joining of them makes a third entity in my twisted little world. So I turned it into a three.
Well, I'll share. I want to share a bad, awesome yin yang idea in there. For example, a triad is always two things. Like a major triad has a major third and a minor third. A minor triad has a minor third and a major third. They both have both every time.
Okay, that's good. I like that.
And it's like you have a positive and negative and a nucleus. Like I call it a nucleus. Like I mean, I don't know. It could be different, but maybe the fifth because it's like the thing that holds it. You know what I mean? Whatever. There's the 1, 3, and the 5, and the center of that. But at least they have the minor and major interval together.
That's interesting. I never thought of it like that. You see, there's always another angle.
That blows my mind. I think it's amazing because you always have both. And then it's just like the symmetry in the 12 notes. I see it like once you hit the tritone, there's your yin yang too because it's the opposite. It's the same thing. Again, it's like we only have halfway. It's like 12 notes, here's the center, and then a major third is a minor third on this way. You know what I mean? So it's like we fold it in half. It's kind of the same thing, but one is brighter, one is darker in color. It's awesome. I love it.
No, it's very cool. But again, if you know where something is, hey, if I say here's a triad, add the 9. Oh, it's up here, but it can also be down here. Hey, raise the fifth, or then you could do a whole bunch of things from that. And I think students really overlook, like really knowing something so well that you can do that.
Yeah. One other cool thing you mentioned Bagua, and another part of Bagua is the it's like the holistic life circle. I don't exactly know what it's called. I just noticed Bagua. You know this? It's like an octagon representing different areas of life with the symbol. You know this one? It has like lines.
Yeah. No, I know what the trigrams are and the hexagrams.
But I see that as well, just like music, and like kind of like you just said. For example, like modes. It's like you have the major. You always have the major and the minor in the full spectrum of, for example, a key. Like the parent mode is like major, but there's like the positive, then you have the negative. You have the minor in there. But the full relatives, we got all of them. It's just 3 majors and 3 minors again, mode-wise, which is totally equal. And then I don't know, the diminished one is like a pivot one or something, but it's still like minor. But backwards, and maybe it's major, I guess. If you, maybe.
I think all these analogies are really great for those of us who are like further along the path. But I don't, I'm sure you're familiar with the movie 36 Chamber Shaolin.
Yeah.
So I always try to, everybody laughs at me when I did a seminar and I played some snippets out of 36 Chamber Shaolin, which is, everybody's like, what the fuck? But I really think that, you learn different things. There's different stages you have to go through, just like the different chambers in the Shaolin. See, like when you're beginning, like you're not going to talk like we're talking. You know what I mean? You have to clean the bowls in the kitchen and do that kind of stuff first, right? Before you get into that first chamber, which is, really dealing with, let's say, bar chords and being able to strum really well and play time. You're not really worried about, the negative and positive aspects of the triad yet. You know what I mean? Now it's as you move further through the chambers, then you become, ready for each stage of that kind of growth. And the interesting thing was, I believe the 36th chamber or 37th chamber at the end of the movie was that he came up with his own, for everybody who doesn't remember, there was this one master who was always beating him on weapons, so he couldn't beat him to graduate. So he went to the forest, and by accident, he chopped down a thing of bamboo and he turned it into, the 3-section staff. And he realized, oh, this is the weapon. So he's playing around with a piece of bamboo, like sort of cut in two places. So we were maneuvering. I mean, that's a crazy, insane weapon. John, by the way, Shifu John Fay knew all the fucking crazy weapons. It was so beautiful to watch him work with deer horn knives. But okay, and then he came back and developed his own, 3-section staff with chains on it, and was able to, defeat his master and sort of graduate. So in the end, that's where you figure out your own way to kind of do things.
Mm-hmm.
you know so I mean, not every analogy is perfect, but if you have a great teacher who understands sort of what you need and what chamber you're ready to be in, that's great. I mean, sometimes if somebody's a real beginner, it's not time to lay all that stuff on them. They're like, oh fuck, I just want to learn how to play a blues or something like that.
Right.
And you have to sort of bring them along slowly and drop little stones or little things to lead them on the way and intrigue them. Hey, see this simple thing? Look at all the cool things you can do with it. And okay, well, why can I do those? Okay, well, now it's a harmony theory question. We can talk about that, or
Right. Woo. There's a lot.
Sorry. It's been I haven't thought about John Fay in a while, and I miss him so much.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm sure I'll make sure he sees this video. Try to get it to him. And yeah, man, there's so many places I want to go from this, but I guess we'll go into mastery stuff, into musical mastery, because I feel that, for me, I'm so inspired by Shaolin monks, because I feel they reach a real level of mastery. And the way they do that is by training 8 hours, 7 days a week, for extended periods of time, maybe from 4 years old to the rest of their life, or to at least 20. Like my teacher told me, he tried to run away from the Shaolin Temple multiple times, and he left at 19, 5 to 19. But 8 hours a day for that long, and you're going to come out with some levels of mastery. So, yeah, some people feel like this question is a little too big, but my question for you is basically just different stuff on musical mastery. So, for example, what do you consider a true musical master? Like, what is that to you? If I say, what is a musical master? And maybe who are some of your favorites that you consider musical masters? I know there's probably a lot, but 2 questions. Or maybe none, I don't know. You say. So what is musical mastery to you?
That's really interesting, because I'm not so crazy about that word mastery, but I'm going to use it. In music, that occurs in different styles. So there's there's a Tommy Emmanuel who's an absolute master. He's a master at other things too. But what he's known for is his fingerstyle playing. And then you have a master like Pat Martino, who is, well, not only is he a master at jazz style, it's also like a Pat Martino style, which is even more interesting. So there's this mastery of style, and then this kind of mastery of all styles. I'm not sure, but I heard a grand master is somebody that has a black belt in 3 or more styles, something like that. And so, I sort of have always been impressed with guys who can do a lot of different things. Bill Frisell is a master in his way. He does chord melody, he solos, he plays in a lot of different styles, which I find super interesting. There's a lot of amazing new player. Borelli Legrand is a master among masters as far as I'm concerned. He cannot answer a harmony and theory question to save his life, but who gives a shit? Now, the things that he plays are extremely sophisticated, but there's another guy that I'm just kind of completely gobsmacked by. Is kind of Borelli since I was young. Django Reinhardt is a master. He tell me everything? Could he play country? Could he tell me what arpeggio he's doing? No, and he probably wouldn't show up for the interview anyway. So even if he was alive, so that's so crazy. I mean, I love guys that I can ask any question of any style to. Carl Schroeder was a master. The jazz piano instructor and jazz teacher at MI was a master. I would, but he was also a master of classical music. He knew an immense amount about classical music and also blues and stuff. He was a master. You
Wow. Well,
that,
yeah, I feel that same way too. But it's just like this in the Shaolin Temple. Like you said, there's so many styles, and it's okay, I think, to not master every single style. But there's a foundation that everyone who's master of one or the other style still, I feel, there's still some kind of foundation that I feel that is is completely known, and then it's like going off and maybe into some specifics.
well, yeah, students. I would kind of half joking and say, I don't give a shit which style you got to play. You still got to know the guitar.
Right.
So let's get to work on that, and you can apply it anywhere you want to. Like I know the guitar pretty well. I mean, I'm getting better at it. I think all the time, knowing it in all intimate ways. And so if you go, hey, what about this style? And I'll kind of listen, and I go, oh, I hear these elements being played in there, and okay, I know what those are. I know how to play those elements. Now I can utilize those elements and make those sounds if I want. Lately I've been going crazy about. God, I can never remember his name. Just go to YouTube and type in Bella Laika Virtuoso.
Okay.
And there's this guy, Arcady something. And Bella Laika is a little folk instrument, 3 strings. And he has it electrified or whatever. He has a little bit delay on it. And he is just playing some amazing, super cool chromatic runs, some jazzy things, sort of classical, but like modal, and he's on 3 strings, just like really going this way. So that got me totally interested in, like, wow, just 3 strings. Well, of course I love triads and the concept of 3 anyway. So sometimes I will practice and go, okay, I'm just going to stay on 3 strings. And now I'm kind of looking around for a 3-string folk instrument. Now I did get one of these.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
This is a cigar box guitar.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to play more single notes on it, but the action's kind of high. It's more set up for slide stuff. But I wanted to... But the action's not quite low enough for that, so I'm going to get back with the guy and see, like, hey, can you make me a... Because they're like cheap, they're $140 or something. So can you make one that the action is low enough that I can, like, kind of... I hate the word shred, but that I can, like, get around more and sort of, really do more single note things on it. But it's been kind of fun to play slide, but I'm a shitty slide player.
Wow. Sounded pretty cool, though.
But go check out Bella Laika Virtuoso. Whenever I play that for my students, they're like, oh my God. So check that out.
All right, will do. Right on. I want to ask you a question about finding your own voice. Some people, of course, talk about it a lot, and I feel that it's totally is related to what you just said about someone having their own style, figuring out how to create the things that they want. So I guess, what advice do you have to musicians about really creating their own sound, speaking from their own true voice, this kind of thing, or ideas, or anything you want to talk about that topic? Because you know what, I want to ask one more thing before, because just like this, like at MI, for example, all the students, like we go through the same classes, right? So it's like we're learning the same information, but how do we still use that, like you just said, still like know the instrument and create our own voice with this information? It's like, how do we do that? 1,000 people come in, do the same stuff. We still want to sound like 1,000 different people. You know what I mean?
I mean, I do get asked that question, and I'm not sure I found my style yet because mine shifts. I like different things at different times.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I did my EP before the sunrise,
It's
and I
really
always felt
amazing.
like,
I do have
oh,
that.
thank you, and I feel like that was a snapshot of that time. It's very electric, and that's cool. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I listen back to it now and go, oh shit, I could have done, but and now I feel like sort of moving in a little bit different direction where maybe I want to get different shades of distortion and play with more subtlety of harmony and use some maybe well not different variations of clean tones rather than all the way distortion or all the way clean. There's a lot of really cool in between sort of subtle guitar tones. One of the things I feel like is kind of missing these days is sort of subtlety. Everything is super loud, super fast, super weird, and I guess sometimes the idea of like, hey, what do you do in a crowded room to get attention? Or do you scream? Do you yell? Or do you start talking in a whisper? And everybody's going, what's that? What's that guy talking about over there? Hold on a second. Let's see what that guy's saying. I don't know if that works or not, but I kind of feel like that. So I always feel myself moving in a different direction like that. And whenever anybody asks that question, I always come up with a little Zen answer of like, your style finds you. You play what you like to play. You listen to what you like to listen to. Now, sometimes I think I'm kind of cursed because I like a lot of different things. Electronica is kind of fun. I love getting a cool sound and like kind of soloing over a weird groove with nondescript harmony, so I can just be free and like non-diatonic and play weird shit. On the other hand, sometimes it's nice just to get in a D, B minor, G, A, and see how melodic and tasteful and toneful I can be with the guitar. Oh, I can play some interesting second double stops and create some dissonance, and I could do some leaps and slides that are more subtle and not. But I have to admit, in my practice time, I want to be able to shred too. I want to have that ability to be able to turn it on whenever I want to. I remember Tommy Emmanuel. I'll always curse him for this. Tommy Emmanuel came to school and did a seminar, and I mean, to say this in a room, guitar players, he goes, "Okay, guys, do you want to hear this fast or do you want to hear it faster?" And you're like, "Oh fuck," you know. So he just starts playing some lick, and he starts like turning up the speed on, just like you're turning up a knob, and just perfect, 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 to the point where you're like, "Oh fuck," you know. And so I still want to be able to do that, but I don't want to be able to like play that all the time. So, I'm sorry. Maybe it's weird. I'm 63 and I'm still kind of like, I'm not sure which style I am. Like, let it find you. Play what you want to play. Put out 3 different albums at 3 different styles if you want to. No matter what, it comes out like you.
Hmm.
I mean, I can't see doing I'm not Albert King or B. And what's the use of doing another blues album where I play the exact same, Albert King licks that everybody else did? Or now I love blues, but I like mixing it up with Django and Larry Carlton and Dan Gilbert and Robin Ford. So, I mean, you might hear me do, a little bit of an Albert King, but there's already an Albert King. What's the use of that? So, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, play everything that you like to play. Play with a lot of different people, and that also helps you get your style. Who knows? Maybe you can hook up with somebody and you can both speak with each other to develop each other's voice. Sometimes myself, I find it, even if I'm writing a song, I'm like, oh, do I like this chord or that chord? I don't know. This chord's cool, but so is that one. And I get kind of like, I don't know which one I want, you know. And I see other writers and like, bang, bang, bang. Yeah, that's it. Bang, 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 bang. Yeah, that's it. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's what I want. Fuck. Sometimes there's a lot of decisions, and I have a hard time with that. To be honest, that's why I always like even on my EP before the sunrise, I had somebody. I'm not going to say producing, but sort of help me go in like, yeah, that's good, and I would say like, no, it's not, and they would go, yeah, yeah, no, that's really good. You should. You know, some things I was like, yeah, okay, I know I want that, I know I want it. But it's nice to have somebody around whose opinion you really believe in and trust to help you with that. If you need that sort of thing. Again, other people, boom, they know exactly what they want. They don't need input from anybody. That's that. And that's great.
Hmm. Cool. Well, that's
Sorry,
good.
still
No,
searching.
it's good. It's like going flowing with the seasons, you know, whatever the moment is what it needs, you know. I like that kind of flowing with it all. Um, yeah, so I want to ask a little bit. Am I? You mentioned, you know, just something amazing that happened there. Tommy Emmanuel. I also saw Tommy there once, and
Mm.
he signed my guitar, which
Oh,
everybody
cool.
has too. But it's awesome. You know, I got so many amazing things that happened there, and that's one of the most, I feel like, magical music schools. You know, and that is a place that there are a lot of masters who have been there or who just so much, I don't know, there's just a very powerful energy, I feel, from all of the grinding that has been done, you know, by so many people. And I used to be so inspired. For example, there was this one, Paul Gilbert has a picture up there, and it says like play 1,000 hours every day. And I used to just go look at that and just be blown away and think, okay, I gotta try to play 10 hours today, like for real. And just look at that over and over again. You know? So that's what I'm saying. Like so much grinding, and I remember, like I thought I was grinding hard, and there'd still be people. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe you were doing this. Something like 15 hours a day, you know,
I mean,
every
yeah, you
day.
go up there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And leaving at night at 3 a.m. is never a very never a good sight outside, but
No,
it's
that's another
pretty.
story.
Yeah, that's another thing. So it's pretty funny. But anyway, so I just want to ask like a fun little questions. Like, first off, what's one of the most amazing things and or masterful, you know, things that you've ever seen at MI? Because you've been there basically since the beginning, right? Like
I think I was
something
in the
like second, third
third
year,
graduating class.
the third graduating class, and then from then you just taught there the whole time.
Right.
So that's just incredible. All these people who you've seen and taught with and learned with and taught and hung and you know all this stuff. So yeah, what could you share that's like what's some of the most mind-blowing stuff you've seen during your stay? I'm sure there's so much.
Well, I mean, definitely, I have to say that Tommy Emmanuel's seminars and concerts. One of the more amazing events was Borelli Legreen's concert that he came and gave. Because at that concert, I saw a lot of metal players watching and their jaws dropping, like and being super impressed by somebody from a very far style from what they were. I was impressed with Borelli's sort of like humbleness. I mean, he couldn't answer anything about guitar or music or anything, but he just and he was very straightforward about it. And he said, you know, just here to play, and that was fine. And then he said at the end that he was booked for the next 2 years straight. I was like, I don't. There's not a lot of entertainers I could or musicians I could really say they're booked for the next 2 years straight. So that was, God, it's just so many things. I mean, personal and otherwise. So many seminars that I got to see. People that are gone. Lenny Bro did seminars. Ted Green did seminars. You know, Eric Johnson's still here. Eric Johnson did seminars. You know, he did great seminars. Sounded amazing, and he's a very very smart guy. Can really talk about what he's doing. There's been amazing students such as Frank Gambale and Jimmy Herring. You know, imagine Frank Gambale in a class, and I'm the teacher.
Right.
All right. Now I got a chance to play in the band with him, which is a great thing. We performed we jammed with Ingve at one point when Ingve first came over to the States. That was an amazing, fun thing. We're backstage and going like, "What should we play?" And Ingve says, "I don't know, but it must be in minor." So
That's so
that
funny.
that was a hysterical. That was a very funny event. But you know, I learned so much watching and playing with Frank Gambale, and you know, watching the interplay from the students sometimes, like when Jimmy Herring was a student, there was this little circle. Jimmy Herring, Mark McKinnon, Steve Freeman, Doug Perkins. These guys would battle each other with licks and it was, I mean, there was a camaraderie, but there was also like just going at it so fucking hard, and there was just so much pure musical spirit going on in that building. Everybody egging each other. I learned so much from the other instructors: David Oakes, Dale Turner, Chaz Grzanski, Alexis, the bass teachers, drum teachers. Chuck Flores, the drum teacher who passed away. It's really, I mean, there's been some amazing, very funny things. Howard Roberts was giving a teacher's, well, he was giving a seminar to the students one time, and he kind of bent over, and a hash pipe fell out of his pocket. Onto his stage, he just kind of picks it up and goes, "Oh well," puts it back. Kind of continues. Howard Roberts was an amazing, brilliant guy, but also a freak. So it's really hard for me to like dial down on one. There's been just so many events over the years and experiences. Tommy Tedesco is a true giant, crazy, huge figure, and very important in my life because when he was teaching, I mean, he did many things for me. I'll tell maybe one or two just really super quick stories. They don't have anything. Well, actually, they're important. I was jamming one time, and unbeknownst to me, Tommy Tedesco sort of saw me or heard me. Later on that day, we were walking in the hallway, and I was walking one way. Tommy Tedesco was coming the other. It was just me and him, and we approached each other. And he said to me, "Hey, man, I heard you playing in there. You sounded really good." And I did one of those, "Oh man, you heard that? Oh shit!" Then I was terrible. And he kind of cut me off, and he goes, "Hey, man, don't give me that bullshit." He goes, "If I tell you you're good, you're good." And that kind of went like, "Oh fuck, wow." Tommy Tedesco told me I was good. I'm going to be able to do this thing. Another point when I was really, really low, all kinds of personal things. I was taking a bus in L.A., waiting on the corner of Hollywood and Highland, and a big Cadillac pulls up, and window rolls down. Kind of lean over. It's Tommy, and he goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "Well, what's funny is I was actually going to my dojo in the valley with Ken Nagayama, and had my, all my karate stuff in the bag and everything." He goes, I go, "Well, I'm going out to the valley." He goes, "Hop in." I go, "Well, it's not in your way." He goes, "No, no, no, man, hop in." And so he gave me a ride. And those two incidents and many more with Tommy, really, like, he was a really great human guy, and he was really complimentary towards my playing and abilities, and it really, really gave me a humongous boost.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it would be incredible to hear from him, of course. But you were there the whole time. So cool.
Yeah, and just the last thing with Howard Roberts, because these guys are huge giants to me. I don't care what anybody fucking says about them. Tommy was huge. Howard Roberts was an amazing jazz guitar player and also a freak. We used to do this thing called a round robin, where there'd be 5 or 6 of us in a room, and we would play a song. He'd take a solo, and Howard Roberts was there, and he would comment, and then we would just go around the room. So I remember we were doing All the Things You Are, and I was playing the melody, and I remember because Howard Roberts was sitting right next to me. I was playing the melody, and anyway, it got to that one part, and I'd never played it before. We went, I don't know why I played that. And Howard Roberts was sitting right next to me, and he goes, I just hear him go, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." And that made my day. I think his voodoo sitting right next to me just made me try something that I never tried before. And it worked out kind of perfectly. And it even surprised me, like, "Oh, fuck, I never played that before. Why did I do that right there?" And I sincerely believe it was called Howard Roberts was right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so good to have that fire and inspiration and all
Yeah,
those people
sorry,
to
I could
pull
I
from.
could go on even as I'm talking. Like, other stories come to mind, but I'm just
I'm
gonna.
sure there's so many, and I know that everybody wants to hear that.
But
That's like a whole interview itself.
I love all. There's some amazing students, and they're so inspiring to see people work that hard all the time. And then there's amazing teachers that I got a chance to play and hang out with and learn from. And David Oakes is right up there among them. I love David. I look up to him. He's one of the masters as far as I'm concerned as well. But just so many great students. So great to see everybody trying so hard. And sometimes it's not the best ones. It's the ones that kind of start down here and like improve amazingly. I mean, that is just so satisfying to see the pleasure on their face and realize how far they've come. And the great guys as well, stealing from them. They don't know, but I'm stealing. I'm watching. I'm going, oh shit. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, one of my questions was, you kind of already touched on it just in that last thing, but I might as well ask it. It was going to say, like, who are specific people that you've taught through the years who you feel like really evolved into a true like master, these days?
Well, it's not exactly fair because I haven't been able to keep up with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be missing some people that really should be recognized. I mean, I mentioned a couple of Steve Freeman's an amazing player. Jimmy Herring is an amazing player. It's really funny. In about an hour, I'm going to go have lunch with another student, Shane Terrio, who plays with Hall and Oates and who was on Daryl's House and played with the Neville Brothers for years, and he's a great player. Frank Umbali, obviously, great player, super nice guy. Several years ago, a lady graduated named Ariel. She's an amazing player. She's in England and U.S. She's a really amazing player, singer, and songwriter. My old friend Holly Montgomery moved back east. She worked her ass off, and she's in a band called Mustangs of the West, and she's kicking it out now. And I know I'm forgetting so many people that I mean, Mateus, for God's sakes, who's hugely popular now. He was a super great player even when he came. Very good student, high rate of absenteeism, but I think he was just practicing, to be honest. And even from the get-go, everything he played just sounded so soulful, and he just made it feel and sound so good. I'm glad to see how successful he's gotten because he's not just a straight-up shredder, although he can play like that. I mean, for God's sakes, Paul Gilbert, too. He was an amazing guy. I knew him very little when he was a student. I basically even saw him play in the last week of school, I think. And I was like, what? Who the fuck is this guy? Because all he was doing, he's very quiet. He just went to all his sight reading classes and his ear training classes. He didn't make a fuss at all. And when I saw him play, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't see this guy all year. So sometimes it was like that. I mean, so many, God, when I sit down and think about it, so many, there's been some really great Asian players, Hong Kong players. Isio, Daniel Chai is very successful. Ho Pang Yen in Taiwan is very successful. Victor Chu back there in Hong Kong is a great player. He's amazing. Brian Shu out here in San Jose, California, is a killer player.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I get jealous of some of my students. I'm like, shit, I got to learn some of that shit.
I'll definitely check out some of those people. Sounds awesome. Yeah, I'll try to just not keep you here too long, but I do want to ask about some philosophy. You've already said a lot of cool things, but who are some people who you kind of look up to in terms of like music philosophy, or you would consider just people who love to philosophize about music, or who you would consider a musical philosopher of some sort? Who you take some things from?
Well, I mean, definitely I have to say Howard Roberts. Maybe he didn't realize that he was, or maybe he did. He was Zen and Yin Yang oriented, but he really was, because his thinking about the guitar was so free. So he was a really amazing one. I have to include Carl Schroeder, who also was just a really inventive genius. I'm always really impressed with guys who understand the history of music. Sometimes, excuse me, I don't know if I like to philosophize about music so much is like feel it and understand that you're telling a story and you're playing with the emotions of the listener. Pat Martino is great, except again with the 36 chamber Shaolin. When I was in New York, I was taking lessons from him, and I asked him a very complicated question about something, and he said, "Listen, Daniel, the universe is vibration. I'll see you next week." I wasn't really ready to hear the universe is vibration. I wanted to know what I could do on a minor 251. Now I can go, okay, yeah, the universe is vibration. I can vibrate in sync with it and play diatonically, or I can vibrate out of sync with it and play, non-diatonically and bring it back and play with the symmetry. Yeah. Now, but then I wasn't ready for that. So I don't like to like kind of. I don't want to like over intellectualize music sometimes, but I like those kind of discussions up to a point. You know. So I guess that's the yin yang part. Sometimes when I talk about guitar technique, I talk about collegiate. Right, what's the proper fingering for that scale? And then there's like street. Yo, fuck, I just do it with my first and third finger. Sometimes I throw in an open string. You know what I'm saying? It sounds good. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh shit. Sometimes I'll watch a street player play something. I'm like, oh fuck, I would never do it like that because I'm like with my proper fingering. But I got to steal that the way that they're doing it. Because that makes a lot of sense just ergonomically. Unconsciously I started using 1 and 3 finger because I'm really trained with all 4. I notice like a lot of street players do a lot of things with 1 and 3 that are actually kind of a little bit more successful. So I'm like, oh shit, I need to. And it's weird. Some guys with big fingers, they actually do like with 1 and 2 what I might do with 1 and 3. I don't know if that freaks me out. That's weird. But anyway, sorry to get off there. So yeah, I don't know if that might have answered the question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you said a few people in there. It's all good. That was good. The universe's vibration was good enough, I'd say.
Yeah,
So,
I like to read Zen Guitar by Philip Toshio, I think his name is.
yeah.
And
And Tobias Hurwitz was a co-author in a second book who did go to MI. That's how
oh,
I
really?
found, that's how I learned about him through this book. And that is an outstanding book. I highly recommend it to everyone.
I mean, a lot of it is quotes by other people, but he edited them and put them together, and I think that makes a lot of sense. In week 10, sometimes at school, I will quote from that book and
Hmm.
read a few things in there, which I think are really good.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. So yeah, man, I could ask you so many things, but I don't want to keep it too long. So I'll just ask, what's next for you, Dan? Like, what's going on? Do you have any plans to release any new music or anything like this
Well,
creatively?
I'm trying to get used to really putting out stuff on Instagram much more, and I got some musical projects that I want to play with a bigger band and play electric, but also want to play in a really small situation just with me and a percussionist. So I'm gonna work up some things for that, and also I've always been I really like to improvise. So one of my projects is uh, in one sitting 100 1-minute improvisations. And so I'm kind of working up to that. I just couple of weeks ago I just did 10 1-minute improvisations with 30-second interval in between each one and just kind of film it straight. Uh, Now, I was thinking about that, and some people might say that's just so self-indulgent. It's just like you jerking off, right? But I'm just thinking, no, I'm going to try and like make a piece of music that lasts exactly 1 minute. I have a timer there, and over the course of doing so many improvisations, I don't, sometimes you get to the point where you start to get really punchy, and that's where I think some interesting stuff comes out. Kind of when you sort of start getting into dream state because you're kind of like getting a little bit exhausted, right? And then some really interesting, weird stuff starts to come out. Maybe in the first 20 improvisations, like, oh yeah, let me do this, let me do that. But then later on, you're like, oh shit, maybe I'll just play space and like I'm just gonna follow. Well, it's improvising, so yeah, I'm gonna work up to that project. I'm gonna put 10. I want to put out the 10 that I did a couple of weeks ago on my Dan Gilbert official on YouTube website, and again, also like if there's some warts and mistakes in it, I'm just gonna leave them. because they're improvisations. And my hope is people will look at them, grab some ideas, maybe grab a theme and go, I'm going to write something with that. You know, even for myself to go back and maybe look at it and go, oh, maybe I'm going to write something with that.
Yeah,
So,
with 100 ideas, you'll definitely have a couple of songs in there at the
yeah, I
least.
mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of repeating, but you know, what I'm interested in is like, you know, improvisation 51 to 99 kind of, you know, like what happens when I start really, you know, getting weird.
Mm. That sounds like a really, really fun, creative idea, something to play with.
You know, one of
Yeah,
the hardest
cool.
things, like I said, I'm like, oh, I'm already stopping myself saying like, hey, who wants to, nobody wants to see that. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to do it anyway. It's just, it's been like a bug that's been worming away at me that I want to, you know, do.
Yeah, just do the 100 and then you're good for your almost for a year, on Instagram. You
Well,
just
you know, many years ago, I did a 6 hour improvisation at MI. So I
just
would like
stop
to,
nonstop, just the whole
yeah.
time. Wow.
And so I'd like to try to do something more like that.
Did you record the whole thing?
No, no, this is before the time of, this is like actually a
Oh.
really long time before like so much digital and stuff, you know. We should probably state some kind of like BC means before cell phone. Right.
That's hilarious. Absolutely. Oh man. Well, awesome, Dan. Thanks so much for everything. Before we roll out, is there a good place for people to stay in touch with what you're doing? You said Instagram, your YouTube, any
Yeah,
other
sure. I'm
outlets?
Dang Triad on Instagram, and yeah, you can reach me at Dan Gilbert Official on YouTube. And I'm not a crazy social media guy, but I'm trying to get out there and do it some more. And stop by, say hi, and you know, yeah.
Yeah, get the Dan Gilbert Triad T-shirt. It's pretty sweet. His e- yeah, man. His
They're
EP that
collector's
you
items
mentioned.
now. They're collector's items now.
That's awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Dan.
And
Uh,
thank you, Jared, and good luck with all this. And I really appreciate your devotion and that you're really doing your own thing in there. And that's really, really great. I really salute you for that, and I respect that.
Thank you very, very much.
Welcome.
Alrighty.